Tonight, Wall Street protest spreads to Hong Kong's Exchange Square. Donald Tsang has announced his final policy address as a chief executive. State opposition leader Eric Ripper continued his support for same-sex marriage, and Barack Obama vows not to give up the Jobs Act. Good evening, co-anchor Anna Godden is off tonight. Let's wish her well. The Occupy Wall Street protest has spread to Hong Kong now as groups of protesters gathered together at Exchange Square Central this Saturday. The organizer described this protest as an attempt to support and defend the poor majority from the rich minority.
The demonstrator attended the rally after being invited by a Facebook group called Occupy Central, inspired by the Occupy Wall Street rally in America. Some demonstrators who participated described Hong Kong as a capitalism heaven monopolized by powerful financial institutions. They demand a change in social policy to close the gap between the poor and the rich. Some victims from the Lehman Brothers also joined the demonstrations. The demonstrators later moved to the HSBC headquarters to continue their rally overnight. William Mann, HK News, Hong Kong.
Also yesterday, 6 people suffered minor burns after being showered by acidic drainage cleaning fluid at Tung Choi Street in Mong Kok. Apart from the police, the fire brigade were also called to the scene to assist the investigation. Mong Kok Police Inspector Leung Sai Kao believes that the drainage cleaning fluid has leaked from a pipe in the building onto the street.
We further investigate at the scene. We found that one of the units at this building, some people doing some cleaning work today by using the drainage liquid.
The injured victims are being discharged from the hospital after the medical treatment. Hong Kong Legislative Council member Leung Kwok Kong from the League of Social Democrats is fighting charges of public disorder and criminal damages after he allegedly disrupted the final public forum on the plans to scrap the by-election in September. The scrapping proposal comes after 5 district constituencies referendum in 2010, when 5 LegCo members from the Pan Democrats regained their seats after resigning from their positions to protest against the delay of universal suffrage in Hong Kong. The policy address has been released by the Hong Kong Chief Executive Donald Tsang this Wednesday. The title of the report, From Strength to Strength, has announced the plans to rebuild public housing and an affordable rate to ensure low-class families in Hong Kong can buy their own homes. Johanna Lettermeyer has the report.
After being in the hot seat as the Hong Kong Chief Executive, Donald Tsang presented his final policy address last week. The address unveiled his new public housing plan in the hope of lulling discontent over surging house prices. The proposed plan includes providing 5,000 flats a year to families who have an income lower than 30,000 Hong Kong dollars. The government also offered public transport concessions for the elderly and disabled. They also pledged to rebate the public transport operators for financial losses the scheme will induce. Donald Tsang also requested operators continue the concession benefits already in place. The address also discussed other social benefits, like the Comprehensive Social Security Assistance Scheme, which will be funded with an extra 1.9 billion Hong Kong dollars. The government also pledged to pay off 2 months' rent for around 700,000 people living in public housing. Donald Tsang summarised the policy address by sharing his hopes for the people of Hong Kong to unite and challenge the future together. Chaos broke out when Mr. Tsang departed from their building as protesters and journalists swarmed his car, preventing him from leaving. Jo Lettermeyer, DHK News.
The state opposition leader Eric Ripper has further explained the carbon tax and how Australian families can be benefited by the compensation packages from the federal government. On the other hand, Mr. Ripper has accused the Premier Colin Barnett of putting incomes of water corporation and electricity utilities into the state government's treasury. During the interview, the opposition leader has also continued his support for marriage equality, which he stated last week.
Earlier this week, when asked about the new carbon tax, State Opposition Leader Eric Ripper said the federal government is essentially setting out to charge all polluters. Furthermore, he explained the federal government is cutting income tax and raising pensions as a way of compensation to Australians. Mr Ripper claimed that Colin Barnett's plan is to take $2.7 million a day into his treasury out of the Water Corporation and electricity utilities.
Once this tax is in, I think people will wonder what all the fuss was about. Now, we're in a drying climate in Western Australia. We're in a 40-year crisis in water security. Climate change is affecting Western Australia. Australia is a rich country and we should be taking a global lead on this issue.
In other news, further to the discussion of same-sex marriage last week, Mr Ripper had openly supported marriage equality. When asked by DHK News whether this action would lose traditional ALP voters, Mr Ripper responded by saying that he believed all Australians want a fair go.
I think most Australians want to extend a fair go to people of all different types. So when Australians think about marriage equality, they mostly think about giving gay people a fair go.
Alex Delbovics, DHK News.
Human rights activist Jerry Georgatos has participated in a protest in Sydney regarding the underage asylum seekers being detained in maximum security prison. He told DHK News that there are 100 minors between the age of 13 and 17-year-olds in custody. Despite speaking to the Australian Prime Minister Julie Gillard, not much are being done.
And this is one of the worst human rights abuses I have ever come to witness in Australian history. In 30 years of human rights advocacy and campaigning, this incarceration of children is the worst. I have met with Australian Green Senator Sarah Hanson-Young, who today promised me at long last that she will raise the question at the Senate. I have met with Senator Lee Rhiannon, who has also promised that she will raise the question.
US President Barack Obama vows he will continue to fight for the passing of the Jobs Act he claimed can create 2 million jobs and tax cuts for struggling middle-class families and for small businesses in the United States. With Congress voted against the act and the American presidential campaign is edging closer, both Democrats and Republicans are trying their best to cheer their voters for support.
In a YouTube video, Barack Obama has explained the reason of Jobs Act is to create more jobs to recover the economy, but blaming the Republicans blocked the act at the Congress by using Senate maneuvers tactics. Mr. Obama stressed that the fight for the bill to pass has not ended.
This fight will go on. In the coming days, we will force members of Congress to vote on the individual proposals in the American Jobs Act. It's your voice that will make a difference to those senators and congressmen. You're their boss, and only you can make them do their jobs.
With the fundraising deadline for the 2012 presidential election campaign is approaching, Barack Obama has sent out campaign emails as usual, urging people to support Democrats by donating money and at the same time blaming the media for getting the facts wrong. Herbert Ramos, DHK News.
Sports news is next with Camilo Mejia.
Thanks, Ivan, and welcome to Evening Sport. Tonight, Australia's rugby fans will be drowning their sorrows after the victory of the New Zealand All Blacks against the Wallabies in today's semi-final match at the Rugby World Cup. The All Blacks will meet France in the rugby finals this week. To Australian cricket now and the Sheffield Shield tournament, where heroic innings from Ricky Ponting and George Bailey were not enough to help Tasmania towards a historic win against WA at the WACA on Friday. Chasing 408 for victory, the Tigers got to within 26 runs, but were finally bowled out for 381 at the end of the day. In the week's other match, Queensland have defeated Victoria in their encounter at the Gabba, thanks to some fancy footwork by leg spinner Cameron Boyd. Chasing 301 for victory, the Victorian Bushrangers were bowled out for 234 runs. That's all the sport we have for you tonight. Now back to you, Ivan. Good night.
Thanks, Cam, and that's how the world looks tonight. Remember to stay in touch with us 24/7 on our Facebook page at the link below. From behalf of Anna Godden and myself, good night.